Hey everyone, happy 2021. I'm so excited to be kicking off a new year right here with you right now. I just want you to know there are so many awesome things that are in store for North Dakota teaching in 2021. And with that comes a little transition in the podcast. It was so much fun interviewing first year teachers for the past few months, and we are definitely going to bring that back around. But for the next few weeks, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to be spending the next few weeks going through different tips and tricks that you are going to want to know, whether you are a student teacher or a first year teacher or wherever you are in your teaching journey. So if you're new here, you can always drop down below. You can grab those 10 tips for new teachers or 10 tips for student teachers. And as always, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Today on the podcast, we're kicking off this new series with 3 tips for going back to school after winter break. So I can't wait to share these tips with you, and I will see you inside of today's episode.
Welcome to the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. Whether you're a first-year teacher, veteran teacher, or just a mom trying to gain some new insights, you are right where you are meant to be. Kayla Durkin, founder of the Blossoming Teacher course, is passionate about helping new teachers blossom into the teacher they were born to be. Kayla wants to help inspire teachers to be their best self, whether that means sharing about personal or professional development, self-care, or the latest and most effective teaching strategies. Through this podcast, you will hear from real teachers sharing their stories about teaching, all with one main goal in mind: to be able to make an impact and help other teachers blossom. And with that, here is your host, Kayla Durkin.
Hey everyone, I just want to start off by saying thank you again so much for being here and for starting a brand new year with me. I wish you nothing but the best for your 2021 school year, and I hope that you know that if you ever need anything, I am always here to help you. I hope your year is filled with love, joy, happiness, laughter, and that if you have any big goals or aspirations, that you know that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. If you're trying to get your perfect student teaching placement, or if you're going for that dream job of yours, we are right here alongside you, cheering you on every single step of the way. We care about your journey and we want to see you succeed. So let's make 2021 the best year we possibly can. All right, let's now get into those 3 tips for going back to school after winter break. So, you've probably been off for a few weeks and it's time to go back to school. You might have a little bit of anxiety going back to school, especially this year when everything in the world is just so crazy right now. Whether you're going back to school in person or virtual or in a hybrid model, I just want you to know that we are here thinking about you and happy to support you however you can. So I'm sure your students miss you like crazy. I'm sure they're so excited to see you, to see their friends, and to kick off another great half of a school year. Whether you're going to be seeing them virtually or in person, regardless, I'm sure they're just so happy to get back to a little bit of routine and consistency. So here are my 3 tips that are going to help you kick off the second half of the school year in the right way. Tip number 1 is always, always, always going to be tip number 1. Build relationships with your students. Building relationships with your students is something you should put a priority on every single day of the school year, but especially after you just went a few weeks without seeing your students. Here are a few things I do every single day with my students to continue building our classroom community and to continue making sure that they feel welcome, that they feel safe, that they feel loved, and that they know they matter. So number 1 goes to greeting your students every single day. I know that it's so hard to get out into the hallway and to stand by that door and to make sure that you are there with your students as they're coming and going, but you need to make it a priority. I know you need to get your classroom slides ready. I know you need to finish something up before they come into the classroom, but please make it a priority. When you take time to greet every single student and to say goodbye to them every single day, it shows them how much you care about them, and it makes them want to continue coming back day after day after day because you are taking that half a second to say, hey, how are you? Hey, I'm so glad you're here. Hey, I can't wait for all the fun we're going to have today, whatever it is. But then on top of that, I want you to use their names any chance you can, especially during that positive praise. Hey, John, I'm so glad you made it. Hey, Susie, I'm so happy you're here. Whatever it is, add their names to it and then going along with positive praise. Wow, Sarah, thank you so much for raising your hand. Oh my goodness, Tony, that was such an awesome answer. Whatever it is, use their names as often as you can to show them that you care about them. Another thing you're going to want to make sure you are doing is using morning meetings or afternoon class meetings. I know not everyone has all the time in the world. I had 43-minute classroom blocks. I had 30 students in my classroom. Trying to get through 30 students in 43 minutes plus cover the content was a nightmare, but I made it happen because it was important to me, because I knew those relationships I was building with my students during those classroom meetings and during those afternoon meetings absolutely mattered. And if I took the time up front to make them feel important, I would get so much more back in return. So make those times for morning meetings and afternoon class meetings. They really do matter. You're also going to want to make sure that you're doing daily check-ins with your students. Of course, I want you to check in with as many students as you can, but we all know those students who just need an extra bit of love. We know those students who have trauma in their lives, who don't have the best home lives, and who just need you to be their person. So take that extra time, see how they're doing, ask them what they did last night, and honestly, ask them if there's anything they need from you. What can you do to help their day go just a little bit better? And whenever you can, listen to their stories. I know. Sometimes the stories go on and on and on forever. Remember, though, you might be the only person that's taking time to hear what they have to say. My first year of teaching, I had a student who had the longest stories in the world, and this particular student wanted to tell stories all day, every day. Honestly, the student couldn't even focus on the task at hand because they just wanted to tell as many stories as they possibly could. So I just started to build it into our schedule. I would let the student know, if you finish these first 3 problems, raise your hand and I'll come over and you can tell me anything you want. If you're able to get through this, this, and this, you can tell me a 30-second story. So I had to make some compromises with this student. I had to make sure that I was giving this student time to get out everything they needed to get out, but I was making it a priority every single day because I knew that's what that student needed from me. As you're going back to school, you're also going to want to center all the activities that you're doing this week around building relationships. When you're looking at your lesson plans and your standards and you're trying to figure out what content needs to be covered, consider how you can incorporate relationship building activities into your lesson plans. Do activities such as those find someone who puzzles. Do team building activities, STEM projects, or PBLs. Do some partner reading, some group science or social studies projects. Build relationships into your math workshop team time. It might take a little bit of brainstorming to come up with these activities, but I promise you it will be worth it as you are trying to get back into the school year and trying to make sure those students know that you are happy to have them and that they're having a good time in your classroom. Yes, you don't always have to make sure they're having the 100% best time ever, but it makes a difference if they're enjoying what they're doing every single day while they are at school. And while these activities are happening, be sure you're circulating the room, having conversations with your students, and using as much positive praise as you possibly can. If you're not already using positive notes home for students yet, I have some that I'm going to link down below that you can check out. These are just simple notes that you can print on some colored paper, fill it out when you see awesome things happening, and send them home. I promise you it's going to make these students' days. They are going to feel so proud when they get to take this note home, when they get to share it with their grown-ups and possibly hang it on the fridge or display it somewhere in their bedroom, wherever it is, because it's going to be a reminder to them that you saw that they were doing something good and you took the time to reward them with one of these cute little notes. Okay. The next thing we're going to get into is classroom routines that you might need to teach or reteach after winter break. When you're returning, you might be surprised at how many routines and procedures your students possibly have forgotten. I know it's shocking because they probably spent the last, 50 or so days doing the exact same thing every single day, and now suddenly they were gone for 2 weeks and they completely forgot how to walk to lunch, or they completely forgot what they need to do if they need to use the restroom. But instead of getting frustrated or letting this get on your nerves, let's just be proactive. Let's just think ahead of time of what things we can do, what systems we can set in place, what routines we can reteach to help our students know what they need to do and when they need to do it. The first idea I have for you is to do an inventory survey with your students. Now, this idea comes from the Champs book. If you haven't heard of the Champs book, I will link it down below so you can check that out too. Maybe your local library has it so you can give it a peek. But an inventory survey is a survey that you can give to students. You can give it as a paper pencil copy. You can type it in as a Google form and do multiple choice, however you want. But basically, it's just going to ask them questions. If you need to use the restroom, what do you need to do? If we are going to get ready for lunch, what do you need to do? It's just going to be a series of questions for your routines and expectations that's going to tell you what your students know, what they don't know, and what they need to what you possibly need to reteach. So if you don't have a list of routines and expectations, I will also link that down below. I know, so many links today. Sorry about that, but I just want to be able to help you have the most successful start up of a new year. When you kick off the second half to your school year, that you're planned, prepared, and that you're ready. Another way to find out what routines and procedures you possibly need to reteach is doing a gallery walk. This can be virtual or this can be in person, depending on what your situation is. But hang chart paper around your room and have your students walk around the room and place sticky notes on those charts, or have them use marker and write on their charts. Or if it's digital, you can use an app such as Jamboard to have students place their sticky notes on it. Whatever it is, this is just a fantastic way to show what do your students know, what don't they know, and you can go through and you can sort the sticky notes together. You can say, yep, these ones are right, these ones need a little work, and it'll be a visual reminder for students of what they need to do and when. And then lastly, simply practice them. If you're worried that your students aren't going to remember how to get ready for recess, take some time and practice getting ready for recess. If you're worried your students aren't going to remember what their expectations are in the hallway, go down the hallway with your students and remind them of that. Take the time ahead of time to do these so that you can alleviate any of that frustration that might come along with wondering why your students can't possibly remember how to do these things. And as always, give your students grace. The last thing I want to say about this is if there are any transitions that you were using the last semester that were possibly taking a long time or you wish they would have been faster, start timing them. Have a fun competition. We used to always tell our students when I was teaching fourth grade, oh my goodness, the sixth graders were able to get ready for Daily 5 today in 47 seconds. Do you think you can get ready for Daily 5 in less than 47 seconds? And of course, those fourth graders wanted to beat the sixth graders because who wouldn't? So it was just a friendly competition, even if the numbers weren't real. So set yourself up for success by practicing these routines and procedures. And of course, give your students grace and give yourself grace. Okay, let's talk about the last thing for today, which is your organization and management. I know you have a million other things that you need to do to get ready for the new school year, but before we go, I want to be sure to share a few organization and management ideas with you. If you know me or if you've been here before, you probably already know the first thing I'm going to say. What do you think it is? It's use a digital calendar app. Hopefully you don't need too much convincing if you're not already using a digital calendar app, but since this means so much to me, I have written a blog post that is dedicated solely to using a digital calendar app, so you can definitely check out that blog post when you have some time. But the reason I am a firm believer in digital calendars is because nobody likes forgetting about things. Nobody likes when they accidentally double book themselves. Nobody likes remembering last minute that they said they would cover someone's lunch duty. Whenever something is important coming up, add it to your digital calendar. It can be a physical event that you need to get to, or it can simply be a reminder. I need to turn in my classroom assignment by this date. I need to be sure to have my lesson plans ready by this date. Set yourself up for success by setting these digital reminders for yourself so that you can pull up your calendar. You can see everything that's happening. If someone says, hey, do you think you can cover me on March 19th? You can pull up your calendar and be like, oh, actually, I have a dentist appointment that day and I'm leaving early, or whatever it is. I just want you to take time to schedule things out so that you don't have to commit to something and then take back what you committed to. Plus, these digital calendars are so amazing because if you don't know, they will send you a digital notification of when these things are happening. You can set your notification for an hour, a half hour, 10 minutes before, depending on what the thing is that you want to be reminded of, but it's just going to help you stay on top of things. For me, I always reminded myself a half hour before the school day ended that there was a staff meeting after school. That way I knew, okay, I probably need to get my classroom a little bit cleaned up before I head to the staff meeting, or I need to do this and this at the end of the day so that I can get to the staff meeting on time. It just really helped me stay organized and on top of things. Of course, all of the tips that we're going to be talking about today, though, are simply about setting yourself up for success when you go back to school after winter break. And so this one is going to make things run just a little bit smoother for you. In addition to scheduling everything into your calendar that's important to you, I also want you to lay everything out that you need the night before. When I say everything, I mean everything. Like if you like going to the gym after school, have your gym bag ready the night before. If you like making a special breakfast or shake, have your shaker cup and supplies ready for the morning. If finding something to wear is always a nightmare, pick out your outfit ahead of time. Anything that you can do to help your morning routine run a little bit smoother is always worth the extra time the night before. I know for me, when I don't take the time to set myself up for the morning, I am literally running out the door, trying to put my shoes on, trying to grab my coffee, trying to grab my keys. And it is seriously so hectic, you guys. My husband would always say to me, I don't know how we're going to get our kids off to school because I can barely get my wife off to school. Like, I had to set systems in place because it was becoming such a headache for me and it wasn't the right way to start my day. When I started getting up just a little bit earlier, had my lunch packed the night before, knew what I was wearing, had everything ready to go waiting by the door for me, I was able to just simply get in the car and drive to work and not have any anxiety about the day. But on the days that I'm seriously hopping around on one foot, trying to put my shoe on, while trying to find my keys, while trying to put on my coat, while trying to do all those things because I didn't wake up that extra 5 minutes early or because I didn't lay my things out, it just wasn't a good way to start my day. So aside from getting yourself ready the night before, you also want to do the exact same type of thing in your classroom. Set out all of the supplies and materials, the copies you need, anything that you are going to need for the next day, set them out the night before. If you're already running late because you forgot to pack your gym bag, you left the house a little bit later, there was extra traffic than you're usually used to, you might not have time to make that copy or to get your supplies ready. So whenever you can, set yourself up for success by having your classroom ready the night before you leave. This is so funny, but one of my biggest worries as a teacher was I was always worried that I would leave my classroom a mess and I would get into a car accident or I would get really sick and I wouldn't be able to be at school the next day. And I would have to text my colleague and be like, please go clean my classroom before the substitute teacher gets there. I was always so worried that my classroom would be a mess, that things wouldn't be ready, and I would have to write emergency subplans. So set yourself up for success by having everything ready. You truly don't know when you're going to get sick. If you have a baby, you don't know when that baby's daycare is going to call and have to close at the last minute. So what I want you to do to start your school year off on the right foot is make a list of 3 to 5 non-negotiables that you are going to do after school every day to help you stay organized and prepared for the next school year. Now, of course, if you are in your car driving, don't grab out a pencil or a piece of paper right now, but just make a mental note to come back to this when you have arrived to your destination safely. So here are just a few of the ideas that you could put on your non-negotiables list. You are going to clean off your desk or workspace every day before you leave. You are going to write everything up on your whiteboard or agenda before you leave. You are going to have your morning slides ready to go every day before you leave. You are going to lay out your activity supplies every day before you leave. You are going to have all of your copies ready every day before you leave. These 5 things that I just listed were the 5 non-negotiables that I did every single day before I left, so that if I was running behind, if someone stopped me in the hallway, I knew everything was ready to go. So I started by, at the end of the day, when I was ready to turn off my computer, I didn't take my work computer home because I did most things at home on my personal computer, but I would have my morning slide all typed up, ready to go, and I would have it open on my computer screen so that when I turned on my computer the next day, the morning slide was ready to go. It was ready to project, and all I had to do was turn on my projector. The next thing I would do is anything that needed to go up onto the whiteboard for the next day, I would take the time to write up, whether it was a positive note, whether it was a list of things students needed to do, whether it was when you get here, please do XYZ. I just wanted everything written there because sometimes you simply don't have time to do those things in the morning. The next thing I would do was I would clean off my workspace and I would lay out everything that I needed. If I needed a stack of copies for first period, I would have those ready. If I needed my read aloud for after lunch the next day, I would have that ready. Whatever it was, everything was laid out up front on my computer workstand so that I could have access to it without having to feel frantic and look for it. Lastly, if there was any important papers I needed to turn in or copies I need to make or anything like that, I always did that as well because our printer that at the school that I was working at was so incredibly slow and it never worked. I can't say it never worked, but there were always times that it seemed like it never wanted to work. So I just wanted to make sure that I set myself up for success before I went home each day. So again, when you have time, when you're not driving, make a list of 3 to 5 non-negotiables that you want to do every day after school that are going to help you go back to school the next day and feel planned and prepared. We all know we've laid in bed thinking, I wish I would have, I wish I would have, I wish I would have. When you set yourself up for success, those I wish I would haves aren't going to be there as often because you'll already have done them. But I just want to say, make sure your non-negotiables are things that are going to work for you and are things that are going to make your life easier. If you miss 1 or 2 days, do not be too hard on yourself. Give yourself some grace. There is always tomorrow. My first year of teaching, papers were a major stressor for me. Someone from the special ed department would give me a paper, or the principal would give me a paper, or someone from wherever would give me a piece of paper, and I would actually have to keep track of it and do something on that paper and turn it back in. And when that time came, the paper was never anywhere to be found. It's like it somehow went into this big pile to die and it never resurfaced ever. Around the second semester, so right around where you are right now, I started putting processes in place that helped me stay on top of all of these things. What I did was I got one of those fabric hanging file folders where I could hang it on my wall and there were little files that I could label. So I had 5 labels on mine. I had my important papers, my to file later papers, my to grade papers, my to copy papers, and my to hand back papers. Anytime I had something important, it would go in that very top one. Anytime I was done with something and I needed to file it, it would go in the second one. I finally had a system in place that helped me feel like I knew what I was doing, like I knew where everything I needed was, and I just wasn't embarrassed when I had to say, I'm so sorry, I cannot find that paper. Can you make me another copy? So this hanging file system was my saving grace. By year 2, I started using a teacher binder in addition to my hanging files, and I suddenly became the teacher who could be given a sheet of paper and was able to find it again when it was needed. It was like absolute magic. Seriously though, it was a game changer. So be sure to find ways to keep all of your papers organized and it will ease a lot of stress. Some of the things that I liked to put in my teacher binder were student passwords, were locker codes, were important information such as IEPs. Everything was all in one location and I was able to have access to it at my fingertips at all times of day. I was able to take this binder to important meetings. I had my scope and sequence in there for the year. I had my lesson plans in there. Anything I needed was in this binder. And suddenly people started thinking like, wow, she's really on top of it. Wow, we can really count on her for this or that. It made me feel so good and I was way less stressed. So, as we end today, as you're going back to school, please know that I'm here for you. I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about your kiddos, and I'm praying for nothing but the absolute best. If there is anything I can ever do for you, please let me know. If you need help finding an organizational system that works for you, let me know. If you need help building in relationship type activities into your lessons and standards, send them my way. I just want you to know that you are doing a great job. You are where you are meant to be. Your students are so lucky to have you, and you are a phenomenal teacher. If you haven't done so already, you should definitely check out our first year teacher support Facebook page. Just go to ndteaching.com/Facebook and it'll take you right to the group. Every single week, I'll be going live in this Facebook group, sharing tips and tricks that are going to help you have a phenomenal school year. And it's filled with so many amazing educators, and the conversations that they're having and the tips that are giving to each other just makes my teacher heart so happy. So I can't wait to see you inside the Facebook group. And thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Once again, happy 2021. I wish you nothing but the best for this new year.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the North Dakota Teaching Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Be sure to tune in to the next episode for more teaching tips to make an impact. Until next time.